what is up guys, it is Kodi. In this video I'm going to be going over my top 3 classes for solo PvP. So this is going to be solely based on my opinion. So you guys may have a different opinion than me, but without further ado I'm going to jump in to my first pick, which is going to be the Warden. So this is going to be my number 1 pick for solo PvP. Now the Warden does not come with a base game. You would have to purchase Morrowind in order to play the Warden. But there's several reasons why I think Warden is extremely powerful. And I'm going to jump into it right now. So one reason Warden is insanely powerful is the skill sets that the Warden has. You have skills that are timeable. So what I mean by this is you have skills that go off after a certain amount of duration. And the reason that this makes this so powerful as a class is that you can time other abilities with your duration ability. So for example, Subterranean Assault and Deep Fissure are two skills they're two different morphs of a skill that go off after 3 seconds. So this creates a burst potential on the class, meaning you can time an ability before this ability goes off. So you can put two abilities together to go off at the same time on your enemy, which creates burst. Now, in particular, I think Stam Warden is going to take my number 1 pick, not Magical Warden. Magical Warden is really good as well, but Stamina Warden is definitely my number 1 pick. It has Subterranean. This skill goes off after 3 seconds and applies Major Fracture. Now, not every class has the utility of applying Major Fracture, which is reducing your opponent's physical resist by 50 to 80, which is a chunk load of damage. This skill is super strong, and if you can land a Subterranean right before you hit a Dawnbreaker or an ultimate or a skill, you are going to be hitting that second ability even harder since you are going to apply Major Fracture to them. There's also skills like this, like you have another skill that's timeable. Now this doesn't have a duration, but this skill takes time to go to your opponent. So not only can you time Subterranean or Deep Fissure on your opponent, you can also time Cutting Dive in your combo. So you can land a Subterranean, a Cutting Dive, and another ability. So essentially 3 skills at once. This class just has amazing burst potential, and that's going to be the first reason why it's so good. Another reason it's so good is it has a skill like Bullnetch, which one gives Magicka sustain and one gives Stamina sustain. There's not a lot of classes out there that have skills that give direct sustain. The only class I can think of is Knightblade and Sorc. But you have a skill that literally gives Major Brutality and Stamina over time. This is essentially 300 Stamina recovery. Now let's take a look at the passives. We also have a Stamina and Magicka recovery passive. And we have a damage passive. So this class is just packed with burst, damage, and sustain. Let's go off to the defensive side of this class and why it's so good as a defensive class. First things first, the defensive buff that you're going to put up, so your skill that gives Major Resolve and Major Ward, also gives 8% mitigation, which is incredible. You only have one other class in the game that gives that, which is Templars, and a lot of Templars aren't even using that morph. So Ice Fortress, you have not only the major and physical resist, the major physical and spell resist, you also have 8% damage mitigation, which is really strong. And I'm also going to go into this skill, which is Shimmering Shield. This is a skill that basically works as a reflect, so you absorb projectiles. So it's a skill that makes you tanky because you can literally absorb the damage of that projectile. It's super cheap, and not only can you get basically all the Magicka back, you get Major Heroism, which is honestly the strongest buff in the game, which gives you an insane amount of ultimate gen. If you've ever played the game back when dynamic ulti gen was a thing, where you could collect ultimate by attacking multiple people, this is basically an alternative to dynamic ulti gen. This class is an ultimate monster. You can drop defensive ultimates and offensive ultimates almost constantly if you have this Major Heroism buff up. And if you do not have this skill on your bar, either if you're a Magicka or Stamina Warden, then you're losing out big time. Onto these passives, you also get a little bit of tankiness from this Frozen Armor passive. If you have both of these slotted, you should be able to get 1,000 physical and spell resistance, just making you a little bit more tankier. There's also a lot of other skills to this class that make it incredibly good, guys, like Bird of Prey, for instance, a skill that gives minor Berserk, and a whole bunch of other buffs like speed and stamina. There's so many good utilities. I'm just talking about the main ones that I use on my Stam Warden in particular. Now we're going to go into the healing tree, which makes this class such a good healing class for defense. You not only get Major Mending, guys, but you get things that increase your max health, increase your healing, and give you stamina and Magicka sustain based on whatever your lowest resource pool is. It's like, this class is legit the perfect. Like, the perfect class. It has almost everything. You have a cheap defensive ultimate, you have a spammable instant heal, and you have a skill that gives you major savagery, which is so important on heavy armor stam classes. Heavy armor is still the meta in my opinion for most of these classes that play out as a tanky 1vx role, and like being able to just get major savagery through a skill that gives you heals and sustain, it's just amazing. Green Lotus gives you major savagery and gives you heals on light and heavy attacks. It's just so good. You also have another skill that acts as a hot, so like even if you don't have vigor or you're playing magical warden, you have a skill that gives you healing over time, which is incredibly important. This class just has so many incredible utilities, guys. You get stamina when you attack an ability with a green bounce ability, so when you heal an ally with a green bounce ability, so you basically are going to be healing yourself if you use Green Lotus, which I do. So every time I light attack, I heal myself. So every time I light attack, I give myself stam. It's incredible. I get Major Mending under 40%, which is incredible. Major Mending is the strongest healing passive in the game right now. And this Minor Toughness, 10% max health is a lot when you have a decent amount of health. Max health really gives you guys tankability. A lot of people underestimate health, but the higher health you have, the harder it is for your enemies to burst you. And that's pretty much a brief consensus of why this class is so strong. There's a lot of other reasons I can get into, and if you guys want to ask questions down below, be sure to throw a comment down below. I'll try to get to all the comments on this video in particular. I know I got a lot of comments and I don't respond to all of them, but I get a lot, guys, and I'll definitely be looking at this video in particular when it comes to going over the classes. So the next class we're going to be going over, you guys probably already guessed it, is the Knightblade. Magicka and Stamina Knightblade right now are in great spots. Magicka and Knightblade not so as much. So this is going to be in particular for the Stam Knightblade. So number 2 is going to be the Stam Knightblade. And the reason this class is so good is because it's insane magic utility and burst potential and sustain. So as a Knightblade, you guys know that you guys get really good stamina, stamina sustain and magic sustain. You have a passive that has 15% stamina magic recovery. You also have a passive that gives you passive damage reduction. So basically, you get major resolve, a major ward, so 5280 physical and spell resistance just by using your offensive abilities. That's incredible. You don't even need to slot a separate skill. You just get it passively. So the reason why this class is so good is because things like Surprise Attack, an ability that gives Major Fracture. Like I said in the Warden class, Major Fracture is an incredible big damage buff. So Surprise Attack not only off balances your enemy if you hit them in stealth or while you're sneaking, but you also get that Major Fracture, and it's a spammable. It's like one of the only stamina spammables in the game right now, besides Biting Jabs, which I don't even consider spammable because it's channeled. You have an ability like Cloak. You have the ability to reset the fight, go invisible, and strike without your opponent really knowing. So you can go invisible, and this ability, there's 2 different morphs. They're both great. You have one that gives damage reduction, and you have one that allows all your heals and attacks to crit within the next 3 seconds. This is incredible because a Knightblade is usually squishy and doesn't have any healing buffs. But when you pop a vigor, so a resolving vigor, so your stamina heal over time, this ability right here, after you pop this ability, you can go into Cloak and literally crit every single vigor tick. And when you crit a heal, it is really important because it's a lot higher in value. Your health will go up a lot higher after you pop this. This is just such a good ability for escaping an outnumbered situation, maneuvering to a better line of sight or area to fight, resetting the fight, coming on your opponent without really knowing. It's just an incredible skill. You also have an ability called Fear that is a CC that goes through block and roll dodge. This is so good for taking down tanks, taking down people who basically wouldn't expect it. You have a CC that goes through block. This ability also snares your opponent and gives them minor maim. So if you're on a 1v1, they're going to be doing less damage to you, and they're going to be slowed. So it's going to be easier for you to hit them, and it's going to be harder for them to hit you. Another ability that's just incredible. This is one of the best abilities on Knightblade, in my opinion. Shadow Image. Now this ability also gives a minor maim, and I'm going to be talking about Shadow Image in particular because it's so good for solo PvP. You can place a shade, so you have to place it on an opponent, but you can place a shade off to the fight or on a tower, go to your opponent, attack them, notice that the situation's getting out of hand or you killed them, and then port back to your shade. You guys probably know what this ability is by now. it's just amazing. It provides incredible defense indirectly because you can take yourself out of the fight, get some distance to then line up a cloak that reliably works. Because cloak doesn't always work as planned. Sometimes you're marked. Sometimes you get knocked out of cloak with an AoE. Shadow Image provides that distance for you to reliably cloak and get out of the fight. Off to the best ultimate in the game, In-Cap, an ability that costs 70, hits incredibly hard, CCs, increases your damage done by 20%, and Major Defiles. Major Defiling is super important when taking down a tanky opponent. You're basically cutting off their heals. This can also be increased by CP. So not only are you hitting them with a hard-hitting CC, which is incredibly important in open world PvP, but you're also increasing all your damage done after that, and you're defiling them. So after you land as In-Cap, all your damage and your pressure is going to be increased by such a significant amount because of defile and the damage increase. In addition, Soul Harvest is also a great choice, but we're talking about Knightblade in particular, so we're not going to be going over that. You have a Gap Closer that empowers. I don't usually use Ambush, but that is incredible. You have a skill that gives stamina and damage increase, Minor Berserk. And you just have a lot of utilities. You even have a class Execute, but I usually don't use that. Off to the Siphoning passive, I usually don't use this skill line at all, but there's some important passives that make this skill line and Knightblade incredibly strong. You have a passive that gives you ultimate after drinking a potion. 20 ultimate, that is almost like literally almost half of your ultimate back. So let's say you're at 50 ultimate, you can literally get an In-Cap back by drinking a potion. So make sure you're using this passive, time it guys, because you don't want to just have an ultimate ready and then drink a potion. You won't be using this passive to your potential. Besides that, guys, the Knightblade is the stand Knightblade is super strong because it has incredible burst, debuffs, buffs, ability to reset the fight, ability to get out of enemy lines. It's just incredible as a class. The next class I'm going to be going over, which is my third pick, guys. This is a tough one, guys, but I'm going to throw a Magicka class in here because Magicka needs some love too, and you guys are probably like, Kodi, the top 3 classes are for solo PvP are Stam. To be honest, guys, most of the classes that are top classes for solo PvP are Stam, just because stamina in general is a lot stronger because they're faster, they're tankier in a way, and they have more bursts. Like stamina is always going to be top notch because they have easy access to executes, major expedition, which is speed, easy sustain through heavy attacks. It's just stamina is really strong. But I'm going to throw a Magicka class in here. Again, this is opinionated, so you guys don't have to follow this. But I'm just giving you a little insight of why I think these classes are so strong for solo PvP. So the Magicka Sorcerer, similar to the Stamina Warden, is strong because you have a timeable ability. So Curse. Curse is kind of like Subterranean or Deep Fissure, so it's ability you can time with another ability, which creates burst on this class. Now another reason why this class is so good is because you have a class Execute, which is also timeable. So this execute can go off within 4 seconds. So you don't need to execute while they're at 20%. You can put on the execute before they're at 20%, hit them with abilities, and then when they fall at 20%, they will get executed. That's incredible. Again, Curse, super good because you can time it. You also have access to pets. I don't usually use pets in 1v1, 1vx open world, but they also are really good. The defense of a Sorc. So the reason why the Sorc's defense is pretty top notch is because you have damage shields that aren't able to be crit. So you have damage you have a damage, what is it called? You have defense on this class that is not able to be crit, which is incredible because crit is what kills most good players in this game because the crit modifier is so high at the moment. Hardened Ward, incredible damage shield, really good. Crystal Frags, this did get nerfed. It does not CC anymore, but it's a super high damage ability that can be timed with your Curse and your Execute. Basically, you just have to proc the frag. There's a 35% chance when you use a magic ability, so you should be able to proc this. Don't be hard casting frags, guys. Wait until the Crystal Fragment is procced. You also have Maya as an ability that gives you basically a little home to sit in to make it harder for your enemies to hit you. I don't really use this in open world solo PvP as much, but I find this ability really good in duels. Basically, every time they hit a mine, they're going to be taking damage and they're going to be rooted, so it really gives you leverage on your opponent. The number two reason why this class is so good, and my pick as a Magicka class, is because it has mobility like stamina. You got streak. You can't streak infinitely in an infinite amount of times, guys, but this allows you to get distance from your opponents and create a better environment for your fight. You also have a class ability that gives you major brutality and major sorcery, which is good, but most Magicka classes get that through entropy anyway, through the Mage's Guild. You have an ability that also gives you major resolve, major ward. Every class pretty much has this, but this is really good in particular because this can add some what's it called, mobility to your class. So it also gives major expedition if you're using Boundless Storm. And there's one more ability that I want to talk about, which is Dark Deal. So you have a skill that gives you direct sustain after a cast time. You see a lot of sorcerers nowadays use Dark Conversion. This is such a good ability because you're able to turn stamina into Magicka or Magicka into stamina, and a lot of sorcerers nowadays are stacking some decent amount of stamina recovery to get an incredible amount of magic recovery. Now this is not the perfect skill, and you definitely need some distance and line of sight to make sure this goes off reliably, but it's a really incredible skill. You also have passes that reduce your Magicka and stamina cost of abilities, give you a little bit of crit, which is important, and you have skills that increase your shock damage, so anything that's your Endless Fury, your streak, and the more sorcerer abilities you have slotted, the more spell damage you're going to get. And of course you're going to have a lot of the sorcerer abilities since they're all really good, so you're going to have a little bit more spell damage than most of the other classes, which just makes it a lot higher potential for bursting people down. And then lastly, this last ultimate I'm going to be going over is really good because you're getting reduce the cost of your ultimate abilities. Most sorcerers use Meteor or Dawnbreaker, and they're a lot cheaper than all the other classes because it's passive. In addition, you also get that stam recovery, so like stacking high stam recovery isn't that hard because you have this incredible passive. Anyways, guys, I probably missed a little bit, but I pretty much try to talk about why these are such a good top pick for solo PvP. For solo PvP, you want to have burst, you want to have tankability, and you want to have mobility. Those are and sustain. So those are the things you want to focus on: sustain, burst, tankability, and mobility. So you want to be able to mobilize, you need to be able to move, you need to be able to burst, you need to be able to sustain easy, and you also need to be able to tank your opponents. So if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them down in the comment section below. I'm going to be doing more videos like this. So I have multiple videos. Like I'm going to be doing basically top 5 stamina sets, top 5 Magicka sets, things like that. So videos that maybe more appeal to beginners. And I'm also going to be coming out with an update video. It's going to be a sick video. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. And I will see you guys later. Peace out. Thanks for watching.